It's 6 p.m. UK time, and this is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I'm Saad in Southeast London, and with me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you doing, and how's your week been?
It's been a very busy week. One is fine.
Very good, very good. For me, we had the bank holiday weekend, uh, so I can say I was a bit relaxed. And actually, we had the open day, which I've been talking about um, on Saturday. So I think I'll mention that a bit later. Um, so yeah, it was good. It was good. Um, so welcome, listeners, to this spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And we have a topic for discussion every week. The topic tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. Address the cause rather than the symptoms. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Uprushing is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity, excuse me, I'm sorry. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Great Message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with seven seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, I want to remind you the topic for discussion tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. Address the cause rather than the symptoms. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Dear listeners, I just want to say what I was saying about the weekend, this last weekend. So yes, we had an open day at a Grail Centre in Whitchurch, in just outside of London. It is in Aylesbury, near Aylesbury town, and it was to welcome the people, the public, to see the Grail Centre and introduce them, the public, to the Grail message. If they have any questions, we'd answer that. So overall, I think we had 10 people in the day, 10 or 11 people came across, and mostly they were the local people, which is what we expected. In fact, I think they were all, everybody was pretty much local people. And I think two people happened to be invited by some of the Grail people present there. So that's how it was very enjoyable to meet, and it was just good for the people to see that. I can't really say much more on that because I don't think I myself was not directly involved in the discussions, but it was just to let people know that there is a Grail Center there in that location, and also if they want to know about the Grail message, they can find out more. So for you listeners, this radio show, that's the aim of this show, to introduce you to the Grail message, and that's why we have different topics each week to look at different angles, you can say, of life, and see how we can get answers about these important things in life. So just again reminding everybody, the topic for tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. So Gregory, as you know, my way to look at these things is always to look at the words in the topic in the dictionary and see what the dictionary says and help us to sort of look at where it leads us. So the first word there is address, and I've got three meanings given in the dictionary there. I think some are very clearly not relevant to the topic that we are discussing, but that's what the meaning there is anyway, so I will just say it. The first meaning for the word address is write the name and address of the intended recipient on, it says, envelope, letter, or parcel. So just writing the name and address of intended recipient. So I'm not even going to bother to ask you, Gregory, if that's relevant. I will say that's totally irrelevant to what we are looking at today. So I'm going to go to the second meaning, and that is saying speak to, which is a person or an assembly. She had an example they gave is she addressed the open air meeting. That is, let's say, I'll let you, Gregory, say something about that. Would you like to make any comment on that meaning there?
Well, thanks in the first instance. Sometimes it seems that it is better to have the different perspective that has been pointed out from the dictionary rather than taking them one by one, so we can have a focus, so we can address them as one instead of address them as differently.
Okay, I hear you there. Thank you for that. So, yeah, so what you're saying, we'll see all the different perspectives. So that's a good point. Okay, let me continue to the third meaning of what the word address. It says think about and begin to deal with, and in brackets, an issue or problem. An example they give is a fundamental problem has still to be addressed. So, Gregory, what would you like to say for that meaning there?
From that, you can already see an address is a focused attention on a particular personality or a particular topic. So it's a focused attention, more like a pointer in order to draw people's attention to what is to be discussed. So whether it's a post office address or an address in the speech, whatever it is a pointer for whoever is concerned to be focused. So it's a pointer to a point, and that point could be a personality, like you have when you're sending a letter to someone, or when one is giving a speech. That means it's a focused attention to discuss specific topics.
Thanks very much for this. Those words, Gregory. Focus attention. I'm just making note of that. Looking at it, looking at the, you can say, subject. Okay. Now, the second word in the keyword, let's say, in the topic is cause. And again, in the dictionary, I've got three meanings there. The first one, it says a person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomena, or condition, yes. So it's a person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. And the example they give, the cause of the accident is not clear. So what do you say on that meaning there, Gregory?
Basically, it's talking about a trigger. What initiated? That is the cause.
Very good, very good. That's good, yes. Trigger or what initiated this, would say, event. Yeah. So thank you. And the second meaning I've got in the dictionary, it says, the meaning of cause is principle, aim, or movement to which one is committed and which one is prepared to defend or advocate. An example they give, she devoted her whole adult life to the cause of deaf people. So, Gregory, how's that mean?
One should be aware of figures of speech. That which you yourself just mentioned is merely a figure of speech, directing one's thoughts to a particular trigger or something that initiated an event.
Right. Okay. I've got a third meaning now. It says, again in the dictionary, a matter to be resolved in a court of law. An example they give is 45 causes were entered in the list for the March session. It sounds a very specific meaning there.
One should focus on the nouns in the speech in order to pick out what the cause is. Many a time, you just have figures of speech to describe a cause.
Right. You say focus on the noun.
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying just look at the meaning of the word cause as a noun.
Yeah, that means
Okay.
a noun is supposed to be the name of a person, place, or thing. So something which stands. So the cause,
Okay.
something of that nature. The trigger. So in that case, there's the focus on the noun tending towards the verb. These are things which is quite common in linguistics, where people use all sort of manner of speaking, particularly in poetry and prose, and for writers.
Thank you, Gregory, for this answer. Just, Gregory, if you can be on mute, and I'll also be on mute when we are both, either of us is not speaking. So that way there's no echo. Thank you. Now, just to remind again the listeners, the topic for tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. And so far, we've looked at the first two keywords, address and cause. Now, moving on to the next keyword, which is rather. So, rather in the dictionary, it says used to indicate one's preference in a particular matter. The example they give is, would you like some wine or would you rather stick to sherry? So, Gregory, so there's a reference, a meaning for the word rather there. Is that, how good is that meaning there? It says used to indicate one's preference in a particular matter. You're on mute, Gregory.
It is either or. So it is precise in its usage.
If I heard you, Gregory, you said either or. Yes?
Either this or this, or this or rather than this. I think
Yes.
it's self is explanatory.
Yes. Yes, like a choice. Yes, I got it. Now, there were three meanings given as well. Let me just look at the other meaning. It says to a certain or significant extent or degree. And the example they give is, she has been behaving rather strangely. So it seems, yeah, Gregory, what do you say on that meaning?
It's very difficult to comment on these type of references because these are just various variants that is used in English. Whereas when we wish to focus on that, which which we are supposed to be dealing with. So all these variants, they stand. However, that we wish to discuss to a large extent differ from the way English is expressed sometimes or in any other language.
Okay, thanks for that, Gregory. Yes, I mean, it's all about context, as we know. So as we go, things will become clearer. So I will continue. Um, the third meaning they say for the word rather in the dictionary, it says used to suggest the opposite of a previous statement is the case. For, on the contrary, and they give an example. There is no shortage of basic skills in the workplace. Rather, the problem is poor management. So, Gregory, is that how relevant is that for us in our
We
topic?
already said choice. You mentioned the word choice. Whatever picture is painted out there, one is talking about choice, which is the intuitive meaning that we need to pick out.
That's fine. Yes. So we'll go with that. We'll go with the word choice. Okay. Now, lastly, the last keyword is symptom. And in the dictionary, there are two meanings they give. It says, first meaning, a physical or mental feature which is regarded as indicating a condition of disease, particularly such a feature that is apparent to the patient. And yeah, an example they give, dental problems may be a symptom of other illness. So, Gregory, uh, how is that meaning there?
The intuitive picture, which is paramount, which runs through, is that of manifestation, the gross material manifestation or precipitation, that which one is able to identify using man's five senses. That is what is referred to generally.
Again, thank you for that answer, Gregory. I'm going to now go to the second meaning they give in the dictionary for the word symptom, which is an indication of the existence of something, especially an undesirable situation. And the example they give is, are declining sales merely a symptom of the real problem, which could be poor product development? So there, Gregory, what do you say to that one?
The answer given initially covers all this, in which one had referred to manifestation using the implements available to the individual or to government. The implements or the tools available are the five senses. So, what you call an indication, does one use to indicate gross materially? It has to be one of the five senses. So, the context, the most generalized context, and the most intuitive context already covers that when one is discussing features, which features can only be realized or can only be used because they are there. And that which is there are the five senses. Otherwise, how could one recognize something in the physical if there is no feature to use? So that covers all whatever definitions that many may have in the dictionary or in other, is it Pictionary they call it now, or some other places.
Yes. No, thank you very much for that, what you've said there, Gregory. I'm just wondering in my mind now, look, again, I just want to repeat this topic for tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. And what's coming to me, because the dictionary, you can see, seems to refer to physical events or basically refers to physical things. That's what it appears. Although a dictionary should not have any sort of limitation in its, it's meant to define things. So whatever a concept is meant to be, it has to put it in the words, whatever words it define it. So what I want to ask you there, Gregory, in this topic where we say address the cause rather than the symptoms, are we being very specific about looking at physical causes and symptoms, or could there be more than just physical causes and symptoms?
It is a generalized topic. There could be causes gross materially, physically, which are perceptible to the five senses. There could be causes and symptoms which are only sensed in our thoughts. After all, we use our thoughts to do all sorts of things. The way we think or the way we care to think has a bearing on our mannerism. So you can see there causes and then the effects. And also, there is the third part, the way our intuition manifests. So there could be the cause could be in one's intuition or in one's thoughts or in one's growth material activities. So these are three different types. That is three different categories.
Thank you again for this explanation there, Gregory. You know, when we look at life, we might, let's say, we might just think of it are physical things that are happening to us. And of course, we already know that life is more than just physical. But maybe, as we say, the focus might be on the physical, and then we might ignore or not even know that there's the non-physical aspects, you know. So I got, but we know that there are non-physical aspects, so we do have to consider them as well. Now, Gregory, I've got a very general question, because we know from our radio show, we talk about the natural laws or the laws of creation. And one of the laws we've mentioned many times is the law of reciprocal action, or I can't even say it now, reciprocity. And it could even be said as the law of cause and effect, which is, of course, what our topic is about. Address the cause rather than symptoms. So I have this general question. Does it mean, Gregory, that every event that happens in life has a cause?
Well, thanks for that particular question. And very simply, again and again and again, there has been a discussion that everything that one perceives with their five senses, with their thoughts, with their intuition, all that exists is in motion. That cannot be denied or refuted by anyone. Everything is in motion. So that everything is in motion is a fact. Even when many are discussing trees that grow, even atoms, even the smallest particles, they are always in motion. Vibration is motion. So it is no rocket science to know that all that exists is in motion. Basically, the last time we had identified that there are only two types of motion, just two. The first type is that motion where the end of the motion flows back to the beginning. The second is that where the end of the motion does not flow back to the beginning. So two very simple types. One can now expand it and say these are two categories. That type in which the end flows back to the beginning, which is a fact because it has arisen out of motion, that type, one may give it a name. That type, one may also classify or subclassify or categorize, whatever name one wishes to call it, as that of reciprocal activity because it flows back to the beginning. So there is a reciprocal activity. One may call it whatever one wishes, may say cause and effect. At the same time, another product or byproduct, one may call it a byproduct, is that when you find that the end flows back to the beginning, it seems there is a crowding together, a crowding together of the different parts that initiated that motion going back to the beginning. Again, one may give it just a name as that of the attraction. An attraction gives a picture of coming together, crowding together. And only those things that are of homogeneous will crowd together. Homogeneous because you have birds of a feather. They do come together. You also have friends come together. You scarcely have enemies coming together. So from this simple explanation, these simple laws of nature, these laws are the bedrock, are the framework upon which all that is in nature rests. Therefore, your question, when examined properly, one will find that it is a fact that once you initiate emotion, there are only two possibilities. That possibility in which that which has been initiated, subsequently, the end will flow back to the beginning. So, if one goes out to plant a particular seed like corn or maize or rice or wheat, like an attraction, one can see it will produce wheat, it will produce maize. So it is like with like. The same thing goes that once a personality in his activities continue to sow gross materially, that is what we are able to perceive. Subsequently, these seeds which have been sown will mature and will grow and return similar seeds. You find this in agriculture, you find this in nature. So it is no rocket science. The same thing goes in our thoughts. If in our thoughts we are the moody type and we emit so much moody thoughts, of course, before long we will find people of that type that we will now crowd together. If there are those who are gossips, of course, they will find kindred spirits who really like to gossip. If they are armed robbers, the same thing. And that goes the same way with noble mindedness, with kindness. So that is how these things are. And no one may deny it, although many will prefer to bury their head in the sand like an ostrich. But the facts are there. So, with the facts, each personality must strive to ensure that that which they themselves have given out will bring them maturity and profit, not destruction.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your answer there and the picture you painted there. Um, it really helps us to see, you know, I was going to say how everything is connected and with action, you know, you say the end flows to the beginning, you know, you initiate an action and then the reaction or response comes. It's all connected, you know, the like with like and so on. So you can really see the logical um, sort of combination of the whole process. You know, it really, really is very easy to see that. So yes, thank you so much for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. Address the cause rather than the symptoms. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments that you might have by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, we are also broadcasting on. This is a bit of a change from our previous shows, so just want you to be careful about it. So this is Bless. The website you can listen to us on is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com /home. HOME. And of course, you can also listen to our other usual sites, which is first one is YouTube. Go to youtube.com and then type in the search box Bless Radio 1. Again, that's the number 1 space live stream. That's for the live show, which is on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. Again, that's the number 1 space Grail message space the topic of the show, which tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, what we know, in our discussion so far, we've only had one real question so far in terms of that there's a law of reciprocity. Can't even say that word now. I would say law of reciprocal action, and which means there's is something initiating, so there's a cause, and then because we know the end has to connect with the beginning or flow to the beginning, it must have an end. Sorry, the beginning, it must flow to the end. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrongly. The end must flow, there must be an end. Since you have a beginning, there must be an end, but the end must go back to the beginning. So you could say that's like a circle or a cycle. And that's very clear. But Gregory, so when something happens in life, let's say many of us would like to know, oh, why? Why is this happening? Or what is causing this? And but yeah, what is the cause of this event? And already, Gregory, you've mentioned we know that there's the physical or gross material causes, which we can sense with our five senses. And then there's also thoughts. And then there's also uh, our spiritual sort of you can activity, which is the intuition. So you can have these causes and effects in three different levels. You know, um, maybe I'm going too deeply already, but I just wanted to say, Gregory. So when there's an event, and I'm not giving any specific case here, is it always involving the all three levels, which I'm just going to repeat: the gross material level, the thoughts level, and the spiritual level? Yes. Did you hear me there, Gregory?
Of course, I did.
Okay.
The thing each person must consider that many times there are events. For instance, there are events which are perceptible using one's senses, five senses. There are also events in one's thoughts. One is always creating events in one's thoughts. These thoughts have an impact on how one behaves, on how one responds to challenges. Or these thoughts are expressed in how one conducts himself or herself. Or is it possible to say that one has no thoughts when one has a free will, when one has the possibility of awareness, when one has the possibility of consciousness and also of self-consciousness? It's a no-brainer to assume that one has thoughts. So it is taken for granted. Moreover, one's thoughts may not synchronize with one's outward behavior. As is usual, when someone is planning to deceive another, the outward behavior, which may seem pleasant, but the inner motive behind that pleasantness may be filled with cunning to do terrible things. There are times in which one's thoughts synchronize or harmonize with one's deeds. So you have two scenarios where the thoughts harmonize with one's deeds and where the thoughts does not harmonize with one's deeds. The challenge is, has anyone ever seen with his five senses, touched your thoughts, hold them in his hand, seen them in their color? None. Yet the thoughts are there. It cannot be denied because it is assumed those who are capable of awareness, of consciousness, possess these features, these abilities. You do not expect a stone to have thoughts. You do not expect a book to have thoughts. You do not expect, say, heel to have thoughts. But that which is capable of moving from one place to the other, which is not driven by some ulterior motive or some other thing, you expect that one to have thoughts. So thoughts are universal to say human beings. So if we limit our scenario to human beings, so that is not an issue. What is an issue is one's intuition. Because man's intuition is not used again and again. Those flashes of thoughts, those flashes that come to you, which flashes you really cannot explain. It doesn't seem logical, but you sense you have this gut feeling that it is right, or this gut sensing. In that case, many dismiss it, only to find that that was the way forward. Moreover, some of these gut feelings do not look interesting. Why? Because in our thoughts, everything has been so well calculated. As you would expect, many a person who claims to be religious, we pray for something which they need urgently. They claim to believe of the Almighty, yet at the same time in their thoughts, they put a condition how the Almighty must answer their queries. Now you can see how exacting man is. Whereas in one's intuition, a very simple solution would have been given, yet it is ignored. So you find these three different categories of one's intuition, of one's thoughts, and one's physicalities, they are there. They act, they are in motion. Therefore, they are subjected to the laws of motion. These laws of motion, we say, are universal. These laws, which we also claim to be the natural laws, or more specifically, the universal laws or laws of creation, which, to be more precise, these laws did not just come in on their own. These laws must have come in through Him that permitted creation into being. These laws are also referred to as the divine laws. Before creation came in, divinity has always been there. Man, as we all know, cannot be defined. It cannot be divine at all because he or she lacks that capability. Therefore, you find these laws have always been there. And only through these laws did creation came into existence. Only through these laws did nature come into existence. And we, as human personalities that have come into existence, are also subjected to these laws. These are the laws of motion that again and again have been enumerated. Therefore, within this framework of the laws, these reciprocal activities that have been mentioned where the end flows back to the beginning, and the other one which has not been mentioned, where the end does not flow back to the beginning, that particular law, from a spiritual standpoint, is that of gravitation. For that which is denser, that which is denser due to its constituency, due to its consistency, sinks as compared to that which is lighter. As you will all know, hot air rises, whereas cold air sinks. When many a person receives a gift of good health or money, the person feels joyous, as if his or her legs would not touch the floor. They feel lighter. On the contrary, once somebody loses something, a dear one, in the process which is called death, in which the beginning has flowed back to or the end has flowed back to the beginning, a process which is called death, in which the human personality that has making use of that body has now left to proceed for its further journey of maturing. You find that cycle has taken place. So one must look at the whole activities. First, not pointing hands to other people, but first, look within yourself and understand what these challenges are. For only in understanding lies the path that the human personality must follow. Else, if you lack understanding, how can you move from point A to point B? If you lack understanding how to use your phone, how can you make calls? If you lack understanding of your neighbor, how can you live in peace? Again, one for all and all for one, these are not rocket science. These are facts. As long as man is unprepared to follow these laws of motion, these laws of nature, these laws of creation, and think it is something very remote, then he or she will be entangled, not only gross materially, but also in thoughts and also in intuition.
Thank you very much, Gregory, again for this detailed, I'm going to say, picture and, the way the life works, how you're giving that picture there. And it's, very clear and you could say straightforward to follow. But I'm also looking at, as people say, oh, life. Well, let's say it appears to people, maybe the life can be, I don't know, I don't want to use the word mystery, but sometimes they don't know why things are happening. So I just want to look at another angle, because so far we have said everything, that there's a cause, something that is initiating an activity, and then due to that cause, there will now be a consequence, you can say, uh, you know, uh, which I call the effect of it, the result of it. So now, now many times you can see what is the cause, and and then they see that, oh yes, this is the result from it. Now I'm wondering, Gregory, can there be something that we give cause uh, by accident or unknowingly? Um, and if so, does it, because of that, would the outcome or the consequence of that be like a milder outcome than otherwise would have been if it was, let's say, deliberate?
Many things you said are deliberate or not deliberate. Let us consider someone perceiving an event triggered by another, and he or she says these are deliberate actions. Seen gross materially, they are deliberate actions. Can we see the motive behind this? Do we know why that personality has acted in that particular way? Are we sure that that personality that initiated these events, which we have perceived with our physical eyes, are we sure that personality is truly capable of doing such when he or she is not under specific condition? That personality would have mental tendencies. And with mental tendencies, that personality that is acting is under diminished responsibility. So you will find that particular case. Only when you have a scenario in which one is able to perceive the thoughts behind it, one is able to perceive the intuition behind it, only in that scenario you will say, okay, fair enough, these ones were deliberate. Deliberate, intentionally, not only gross material activity, but also in thoughts and also in one's intuition. Only in that scenario can you say, okay, fair enough, this was deliberate. But not many have that capacity to be able to see what lies behind it, the motive, why one does one thing or the other, in thoughts or in one's intuition. So one may then ask, what then happens to the reciprocal activity? Very simply, when you have an activity, you have that the human personality that is involved in that activity. There is the one that we perceive with our five senses. We see, we smell, we touch, whatever we care to call it. That human personality that triggers it is involved. The reciprocal activity is likely to return gross materially to him or her. If his thoughts participated in that manifestation, then you will have the returns. They have to hit that initiator in his or her thoughts. If, on the other hand, man's intuition, which is spiritual, participated in that activity, then the reciprocal activity will have to hit when the end flows back to the beginning. So these are three different categories and they manifest at different times. One goes to the farm and plants corn. In 3 months, he or she reaps corn. One goes to the farm and plants an apple tree. It may take years before he or she starts reaping. One goes to the farm and plants coconut tree. You can imagine how long it will take before it matures and then start yielding fruits. And when the ends return, that means when the fruits are ripe, it doesn't, when you go to the farm, you don't just go to pick one grain of corn. You will call that injustice. There are loads, or there is in the abundance. Why? Because that grain of corn that has been planted in the soil attracts nutrients, grows and builds up, and returns in abundance to he or she who has initiated that. That we can verify with our senses. In our thoughts, many of us are not aware that that same process, which one has mentioned, also applies, where in our thoughts we participate or we initiate so many other things. Before long, the returns will come and they will pass on to the individual because he or she was a holder, was a stakeholder in an event which has happened. The same thing happens with one's intuition. So you have in a country, many stay away and they can perceive what many others are doing. And yet, due to their activities, they have participated in such terrible things happening in the country because they all wish, if I have the opportunity, I will steal and steal. If I have the opportunity, I will also kill others. It amounts to the same thing. So, no matter how many ways people try to hide it, that which a man has sown, not only gross materially, but also in his thoughts and his intuition, it is that which he or she will reap. Or would many prefer they go to the farm and they sow an apple only to get weeds? Will they be happy? So the laws are clear that each personality must examine. To examine basically means to see how, when one has initiated a course, how this thing runs through. At the same time, to be patient here, because the manifestations may be here. The manifestations may be hereafter when one has departed. Or the manifestations may be in thoughts or in intuition or gross materially. Maybe when one has incarnated again. in a particular country, in a particular village, that is how it happens. So, whatever the human personality has put in creation, that's undoubtedly he or she will reap, whether he or she knows it or not, depending on how he has conducted himself, whether it was deliberate or not deliberate.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your, again, detailed answer there. I've received a question from a listener, but before I put that forward, I want to just let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushin. And if you are interested to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight on the radio show is address the cause rather than the symptoms. Address the cause rather than the symptoms. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on, this is a change from our previous address, slight change, but I will say it very clearly for you. It's Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com /home, HOME. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube the next day. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is, excuse me, sorry. Just trying to... Apologies, another person trying to go on our line. So yes, it is as I've just got a little bit lost my track. I think I said YouTube already. So yes, the topic of the show. So to listen to the recording of our show, tonight's show would be go to youtube.com, type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1. Now, Gregory, as I said, there's a listener who's put a question. It's really related to the we've been talking already. The person is asking, what is gross material?
Very simply, gross material is all that is perceptible to one's five senses. Whatever one can use, or those tools that one uses in his earthly or her earthly activities. After all, there are five senses. So whatever is perceptible using those five senses is gross material.
Thank you very much. I hope the listener you're happy with this answer. And any other questions, please do come forward. That's for all listeners, actually. Please do come forward with your questions and comments. Now, now, Gregory, let's look at symptoms because we talked a lot about cause, and and we already mentioned there's a law of cause and effect, or we can call it different names, but that's what it is. But let's look at symptoms. Now, Gregory, there seem to be people and governments somehow in general seem to address the symptoms rather than look at the cause. So why does that happen? Yeah, why does that happen?
Again, one should know that many a person, many a nation, they are too timid or too cowardly to face the challenges of a cause. For a very simple instance, a place in there are some countries where they like to carry guns everywhere. And the smallest quarrel, they pull the gun from their waist, they are shooting everybody. It happens again and again because these personalities have access to guns. The challenge is now, what can the government do? That must be directed to the government. Whether they are bold enough to tackle that cause or not. So, on the one hand, you find that many a person or many a government are too timid or too cowardly to examine the cause. Therefore, they look at the symptoms and they even run away. But in the case of medicines, you find the doctor or the medical personnel will do some examination and we do another examination in order to eliminate what could be an aberration, to become clear what is happening. Because in the medical field, there could be similarities. So they work together, those in the medical field, until they arrive as near the cause as possible before they hopefully provide a solution and say maybe changes need to be made here. But there are other cases where, due to ignorance, they are unable to deal with the causes. In the case where you have so-called mental issues, in which, strictly speaking, there is nothing wrong with the brain. It functions very well. But the personality, which personality is of spirit, which personality makes use of the physical body and due to its own weakness in one way or the other, another personality struggles to make use of that same physical body because the person who owns the physical body is unable to take control. Many may wonder, how is this possible? Very simple. Go and ask those who are drunks. For after taking so much alcohol, many things come out from their mouths or from their activities, which if they were sober, they would never have done. Because it's as if they have given the possibility to another personality to influence them, or sometimes to make use of them. These happenings have always been there. One only needs to observe very carefully and make conclusions. So that is what you find, that in many scenarios, either a person cannot deal with the elephant in the room, and therefore we prefer to look at the symptoms and find a solution to symptoms instead of the cause. The case of smoking is very clear. It is very well known it causes cancer, yet people still decide to smoke.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for these answers and explanations. I want to look at something, let's say one example, which is in UK. Well, it is claimed, let's say, that there's a big immigration or refugee problem, specifically with reference to the people crossing from France across the English Channel over to UK. They call it illegal, in so-called illegal migration. And the government has come up with their own little gimmick, I will use the word gimmick, headline calling it Stop the Boats. Obviously there's something, they think that is a big deal for them, that they want to stop the boats. And so they're claiming to have taken some action, which is that because they consider this to be a very serious problem for these people coming over. They're coming in big numbers, as I say, they say, and it's costing a lot of money, hotel and other places they need to deal with. And even to deter these people coming on the boats from France, and these are small boats, to be specific, not the people who are going in the ferry and things, just in case somebody's getting a wrong idea. We're talking about these immigrants who are so-called illegal coming in, and they're also refugee, because they claim refugee, most of them. But anyway, to deter them, the government is saying they've made a new scheme where they will send anybody who comes across in these boats to a third country, in this case Rwanda, where they will be processed, and if they get through the process, they're granted status to live in Rwanda, not actually in UK, even though they were trying to come to UK. So this is let's say, a scheme that has been put out as, I don't know if I can really use the word solution, to deal with this problem. Now, Gregory, is this really a solution? Let me say, I know this can be considered political discussion, but the reason I'm asking this question, Gregory, is what we are looking at, addressing the cause rather than the symptoms. This is what the topic is tonight. And people thinking, oh, we are stopping the boats. This is the plan, let's say, stopping illegal migrants or refugees crossing the sea, or at least the means they use are illegal, even if they themselves may not be illegal. The means they're using is illegal because they're using smugglers who they don't have a visa to come across. They just throw them in a boat and then they have to come across. So my question really, Gregory, is this really this scheme? Is this really a solution to this problem, so-called problem, or because in the sense of looking at the cause of it, or is it looking at a symptom? And let's look at that first, Gregory, and then maybe we can go a bit further about that.
These issues abound almost everywhere. And what you find is that there is migration from one country that does not seem to have much in resources to another country which seem to have resources. That is a fact. Or have we seen anyone that escapes and goes in a boat to a wretched country to stay there if there are no resources? As of now, there is no evidence of that. The question one must ask oneself, the causes why people move from where they are. Some of the causes could be, first, bad government. Some of the other causes could be personal decision. The question one must ask, how is it possible for another government that is responsible for its own people, how can they go to another country and deal with the costs of bad government to implement stringent measures on that bad government? Impossible. So that means government A cannot impose such stringent conditions on government B. After all, you will find that these are supposed to be independent governments. Secondly, you will find that the personal causes which make many a person leave its current abode to another place varies. Now, how can a government read the minds of others to know what the causes are? It can only rely on the symptoms it has found and make a fuss out of it and pretend to solve the problem because it is too challenging. So one has to show some understanding in this particular scenario on government. Another factor which one must consider, here in which you have a person that wishes to migrate to another country. Very simple question. This migration costs a lot of resources. Now ask yourself, would those resources not have been better utilized to improve their conditions where they are, instead of passing these resources to smugglers who uses them as chattels? These are the questions each personality must ask themselves, rather than be very quick to jump to conclusion, to say people are in difficulty. Of course, people have difficulties, people have challenges, everyone has challenges. But if you are to calculate how much resources have been spent, you will find that many we prefer to have spent that resource first to develop themselves and to find other ways. These are the things which are not discussed. Governments are responsible, first and foremost, to the people who elected them as officials. So, in all naturalness, they need to deal with that. When they have anything extra, or if there is something which governments are doing which is impacting negatively on other governments to ensure that they are unable to make provisions for their people, then it is right to engage one government to another. So solutions which governments come up with to say we will send people to this place and to that place, there is no need to even comment on it, morally or not. For when you find a government and they ask you, what are the alternatives? What will be your answer? To bring them in? On whose resources? Because if you have to go for a referendum to ask those who elected the government, say, okay, we are prepared to bring these people in. We are going to raise your taxes. Listen to them. Just as those people who have left their country to another land and expect people in another land to show kindness, they themselves should, in their daily activities, show kindness to others. Subsequently, they will find that things are not as bad as they have been made to be. That one cannot leave one's house and expect to be treated with all kindness in another person's house. One must put oneself in these scenarios. Of course, love, devotion calls for caring. However, there must be a limit because you cannot leave your home and go to another person's house and to teach that person how to care for himself or herself. There are limitations, which limitations most of the time are never considered. So instead of continuous blaming of government, this you must do that way and all that, that will not be right. For if you yourself becomes an official, you must ask, where would the resources come from to maintain all these people? So there must be checks and balances as at these things, at what is happening, instead of just saying, oh, government should do this. Yes, government can do it, but they raise your taxes. And then who pays for it? These are the questions that each personality must ask themselves before they throw their, their gloves into the ring and want to apportion blame. That in everything which we do, in our thoughts, in our gross material activity, and in our intuitions, everything is in motion. And the right to receive is conditioned on the right to have given.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer there. As you could say, the key word there is balance. Yes, you give and you receive, but then there's also a balance. Otherwise, it becomes out of balance. And yes, you make as we said, you make a decision, or you something happens, a cause there, then there's a result from that, and that happens to land on your doorstep. Uh, I mean, Gregory, what we're talking about is so far was you could say the immediate situation. If we, let's say, went back into history, if I use the word history in quotes, all I mean is, yes, you see the people crossing from France to UK, but they didn't come from France. They came from some other place, yeah, which we did mention. But then how did it happen that they were, as you say, in a land of less resources, and then they want to come to the one with more resources? Something's going on there, that means. So what is the deeper cause going on there? So as I said, this topic, we could really go on forever, but maybe they why are they running to even this country rather than some other country? So you can always ask 100 questions about these matters, but they want to come to this country. They don't want to go to France or other countries which are along the way, and they're already there when they pass through those countries already, but they decide, no, 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 we want to come here. And then we are saying, no, no, go to the first country. Why are you coming here? So there's all sort of scenarios, and people having their own views and so on. But in the end, there has to be a balance, uh, and it's like somebody has to come with a decision. Um, and of course, we always have to look for this all for one and one for all, where all people are happy at the end. So I will leave it at that for now. Um, you could say it's a thought-provoking thing to think about. So let's leave it for that for now. I just want to tell the listeners that you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. And if you want to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. Address the cause rather than the symptoms. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on, just again to remind you listeners, this is a slight change on the website address. So the website is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com /home, HOME. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, and in the subject box, or search box rather, you put in Bless Radio 1, again that's the number 1, space live stream. That's to listen to the live show. You can then the next day listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is address the cause rather than the symptoms. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1. Now, Gregory, I mean, all of these topics we can, as I said, talk on and on and on. So another one that I heard in the news today, it's about the health risks. Not that it's really news for today, but we've known it many time, long time. But they mentioned it today that we are hearing about the health risks of, they call it ultra processed foods, like biscuits, and you can say crisps and other types, which I think we all know, pretty much know them. And my question on that, Gregory, is, and we know why, let's say, people have them, public buys, that likes to buy them for whatever reasons. Well, and I wanted to ask, who is to blame for the risks, the health risks that you can have from these ultra processed foods? Uh, I've got three, you could say, groups of people. One is the manufacturers who push it to the public, because it's a convenience for us to eat these things. Number two, is it the government who are supposed to regulate these food products and ensure the health safety? Or number three, the public who are consuming these products and therefore responsible for what they eat? So, Gregory, yes, who is to blame for the health risks from these ultra processed foods?
The question, when considered carefully, one for all and all for one calls for joint responsibility. They are in the same team. Therefore, the question was asked oneself, who is to blame when all are in the same team? When people make decisions to elect those they wish to be in government, when people make decisions to smoke, if it is not there, they go and get something. People make decisions to take drugs on their own, even if the government is against it. The question is, who is to blame? All are stakeholders. The apathy, the fear of dealing with a solution or of examining objectively that which needs to be done. That fear is not only from government, it's also from bodies who are stakeholders, who benefit from the demise of others, and also personalities who refuse to give up the consummation of some of these things. So you find drugs out there, and then people feel they wish to get high. That is based on their free will. Governments cannot monitor everybody, even in so-called dictator countries. So the question on whom is to blame should be directed to each individual. How does he or she stand in these matters? In his gross material activities, in his thoughts, and in his intuitions. When you refer to processed foods, or you say ultra processed foods, one must understand that that word ultra means too many things to many different people. When you consider ordinary milk, the possibility is there to boil the milk when it has just been obtained from the animal. The possibility is also there to subject that milk to high temperatures for a short time, or to pass certain radiations through this milk for a short while. The question you must ask yourself, which one is the ultra processed foods? Is it the preservation of these foods? Or are people expected to eat or to consume these foods without any processing? To what extent do they process these things? There are people who prefer to have meat which is not well cooked because they don't want it to be ultra processed. Of course, they have their free will. That is their choice. There are some who prefer to cook it very well. Is that ultra processed? There is the need to have open discussions about this such that each personality will be aware of what his responsibilities are so as to know how to proceed. For you cannot accuse someone of doing something when you yourself are more guilty of it. Free will ensures responsibility. Where there are no responsibilities, or where there are no free will, there will be no responsibilities. For a stone out there, you cannot say, oh, the stone is guilty. The stone has no free will. The stone is not alive. But you, who has a free will, you must behave in such a way such that it brings you, not only you benefit, but also others. So there are a whole set of duties incumbent on each individual in a society, which duties are quietly ignored. They wish to have advantages over others, but the responsibilities that come with the exercise of the free will they reject. The question bounces back. Who is to blame? All for one and one for all? That particular question must be examined by all and by one.
Thank you again very much for your answer there, Gregory. Now I want to move to another topical topic. In fact, it's very relevant for today, at least for those of us who are in London. And there's, which I know people outside of London, it might be a meaningless point, but I will just give the picture. So in London, there's a zone called ultra, I know again the word ultra there, ultra low emission zone. So what that actually means is that, cars emit pollutants and which can affect the breathing, especially young children who are living on the roads near to those or basically heavily traffic or traffic roads. And their health can be really affected. Of many, let me say many children, not everybody, and even adults also, but mostly seem to be children. And and so what happened in London? They introduced this low emission zone, which is called, let me just call it ultra low emission zone. And that's it. First, it only covered central London. And then they expanded to inner London. And today, they now expanded it to outer London. Now, just for people's understanding, inner London, mostly the people use public transport much more than using cars. Then you go to inner London, which is our area around the central London. It is more people using cars, but still using a lot of public transport. And the point is that so far the results have shown there has been a benefit with less children going to hospital, suffering breathing problems and whatever. It might be a limited number, but there has been improvement. And now the mayor of London has implemented a plan to widen this or expand this ultra emission zone to the whole of London, which is the outer London areas as well, which has again more people using cars, and then the and public transport although is good in London, public transport is good. So the thing is, some people rely on the cars more in outer London than in inner and central London. And the other thing is, there's a fee if you do want to use your car. There's going to be there's a fee. It's always been a fee to enter the zone, which is, let's say, again, it'll be meaningless for other people, but it's say £12.50 a day. But the point is, for you to really drive in London, you need to have this low emission car, which so many people are not having this car. Let's call it, say, make a number. It's about 10% in outer London do not have this car, uh, which how can I say is I've forgotten the right word for it, which sort of fits the low emission zone criteria. So those people, for them to change their car, many of them can't afford it, and so they have been protesting and very angry about it in quite a vociferous way, not happy about this change. Even though the point is, Gregory, most people are really in favor of improving the environment and reducing the emissions, polluting emissions. So again, what comes to mind is there's a balance, but how many people are going to be affected and who can't, it's just maybe it's going too far. Maybe that this low the emission zone has been expanded too far, or it has been maybe done too quickly, because that was another point that people made. That can you please? We are living in a cost of living crisis, and many people are suffering severely, especially the low paid, and they are the ones going to suffer even more if this emission zone is expanded, which it has happened. And the mayor, anyway. So I won't go into all the more details about it. But the question I want to ask there, Gregory, with all these, you could say, demands and restrictions, and with the implementation of this policy, which happened today, as I say, to expand to the whole of London. You're wondering how should one, we say this all for one and one for all. But how can you satisfy everybody? Because you could be waiting forever. I say that in quotes. If you want to give everybody a chance, to, allow this policy to be implemented. How do we achieve this? With this as all for one and one for all in mind. I think
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I have the question. One must consider that when that expression, all for one and one for all, is utilized, there is the consideration taken for one's intuitions. That is the gut feeling. There is the consideration for one's thoughts and the consideration for the gross material deeds. What you yourself have mentioned here is only the final effect, how to minimize the final effect. That does not change the way people think. To do that, it requires the participation of many, of the majority. That hasn't changed the way people use their intuition. To do that requires the participation of many, and they have to know how to use their intuition. So, again, there are three different categories which man must consider. What you have seen now are only the final precipitation gross materially. The emission zone you mentioned, such challenges are almost in all countries. There are some countries that are moving away from such that they use electricity, as you already find with electric cars. Of course, with electric cars, you won't be talking about emission zone. There are other forms of transportation. So the all for one and one for all only means that those who elected the government and the electors need to come together, to crowd together, to discuss these challenges, knowing fully well what the impact will be now, here, or in 5 or 10 years' time. Only in such a way can you get people involved such that these decisions which they make now may have an impact on generations to come. That is the only way one can tackle it knowingly, not by stealth or by tinkling, only with the external precipitation of our thoughts. There are many who will say, okay, let's consider the emission zone because they themselves do not have access or do not have the resources to buy big cars. As soon as they win the lottery, the first thing they will buy is a very big car which they themselves have criticized. So you see, there is more to it than just accept what is being discussed. The individual, after all, a society is made up of individuals. And individuals participate in their gross material activities and also in their thoughts. So the changes for the better must come first in their intuitions, in the way they care to think and to act. Only then will it be implemented when their thoughts harmonize with their gross material action, when their thoughts harmonize with their deeds for the better. Only in that way can there be solutions. Otherwise, it's a waste of time because you would say, oh, um, let's go green. What does that mean? Does that mean transportation should come to a halt? We go back to the COVID era? So the issues must be brought to the fore so that everyone participates, everyone has a voice. Else, all this we're extending this according to this, again may be partially helpful, but these are mostly political gimmicks because they know that there is no way you all of a sudden can ban cars or can extend this and extend that. You yourself know that at the initial stage, there was this charging, congestion charges, which kept on increasing and increasing and increasing, and they expanding until now the whole of London. Hopefully, we have to pay for driving vehicles. But the question you must ask yourself, what have they put in place to work efficiently so that people will abandon their cars? To work efficiently, others must participate. Is it the striking workers that don't need to cooperate or need to cooperate? All this must be brought into the table and discussed rather than to take one side and say, okay, this has to be done, and by stealth, quietly, this is pushed aside.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answers. And actually, we looked at a few questions today, which covered a lot, I must say that. So I hope, listeners, you have enjoyed the discussion. And we could have gone on and on and on, actually, with even more questions. But I think we have covered quite a bit today, which is hopefully people understood, enjoyed that. So we've come to the end of the show, listeners, tonight. And I'd like to, as I like to do regularly at the end of the show, read from the foreword of the Grail message, which is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all the obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abdrushin. So, dear listeners, if you wish to get more information on the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And hope, as I say, you've enjoyed our show tonight on address the cause rather than the symptoms. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing the listeners a beautiful week.
Good. And same for me, listeners. Have a great week. And we'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. All the best to you. God bless. Good night. Bye.
No cigarette smoking in my room. Yeah. I still want Marley. Bless FM radio, play good tune. Bless FM.